Welcome, good morning. Wake up. Let's go.
So let's start with you because you know what? You are a motivational speaker and we could feel it. As soon as you walk in the room, the energy comes with you. So I would love you to share a little bit of your knowledge around how you self-motivate, even when you're doing something new, and then how you motivate others to join you.
Well, the first thing that I do is I think about the word can't and change that into can. You know, because a lot of times how we think mentally and how we are mentally, that does impact us. And I know some people are like, oh, that mental stuff, that mindset stuff, but it makes a difference. Like if you were to say, oh, no, I can't do this project, it's gonna be too hard, then guess what the outcome is? It's gonna be too hard, you can't do it. There is a thing called power of manifestation, and it's real. Just like today, met this wonderful Lee, met Gavin, you know, they're involved in a lot of things, but that may be a connection to something in the future. We all may help each other with something, who knows? You know, because that attracts the energy. Just like when I came to this conference, I said, you know what? I'm gonna leave at least with 10 connections, and it's gonna be great. So far, I've gotten 20. You see what I mean? So, you know, 20 actually good connections. That's what you have to tell yourself. So for me, but there's one other factor, and this is gonna seem anti-logic. It's okay for negative, okay? I know some people say, oh, it can't be negative, but negativity is how you deal with it. It's gonna happen no matter what you do. Just like when our project launched, NFTs for Freedom, my brother died the same day he was murdered. And so instead of like being devastated to the point of like, I can't do this, I shut down, I opened up some grief spaces on Twitter and Clubhouse and said, is there anybody else who lost a loved one? Let's talk about it. So in other words, embracing the negative, embracing those things. That way you're not trying to suppress it and hide it. You know what I mean? And being realistic with yourself. Because everything is not gonna be always positive, 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 but it's about when you fall down, are you getting up? So if I fall down right now and I just stay down, I'm not getting up. Oh, life is too hard, I can't do this project. But you know what? I'm gonna get up, I'm gonna try it. One step at a time, now you're up. That's it. I mean, I know it seems, you know, like it should be more to this, but it's really that simple. You tell yourself you're gonna keep taking one step forward. If you don't know something, go find it. If you don't have the connections, you know the saying, it's not about what you know, it's who you know. Go get the connections. How can you get the connections? Whatever industry you're in, there's always some kind of association or some kind of organization. They're gonna have meetups. They're gonna have, you know, even during the pandemic, there were Zoom sessions, you know. I'm in the music, so I joined BMI and ASCAP. You know, they say you can't join both. Yes, you can as a publisher. See what I mean? Look for solutions and not what is the problem. Look for how you can. And it's okay to say you don't know. That's okay. So if I had to boil this down, I know I'm going on and on. I have to stop myself.
Do you guys agree this is part of what we need in the morning? It's like when you have the I can't, how do you turn it to I can? I think this is brilliant.
Absolutely. Well, I should have started with that first. The first thing I do is I look in the mirror every morning and I say, you got this. Even on Twitter and other places, I say, good morning, how are you? I ask people, how are you doing? Like, how are you? Not what are you doing, you know, what project you're working on, how much, no, how are you? That's what you have to ask yourself, how am I today? How am I doing? And being honest with yourself, that's the really biggest key to moving forward, in my opinion. Being honest with yourself, because when you can be honest with yourself, you can be honest with others. But if you're deceiving yourself and you're not, you know, really being that true to yourself, it's gonna be difficult. But you know, each and every one you can do. So think about, what is your goal? Why did you come to the conference? What did you want to achieve? Think about that. Have you achieved it yet? That's okay. If you didn't get it during this conference, if you know, is it making connections? When you leave here today, go out and say, you know what? I'm gonna walk up to 3 people and say, how are you doing today? If they look mean, like, you know, okay, go to the next one. Like, hey, I'm here at the conference. Are you having a good time? Just strike up a conversation. That's it.
They'll be happy to connect with you and have a way. And you're right, though. I remember Harvard Business Review put happiness science on the cover. And all of a sudden, happiness became a topic at work. And a lot of it is exactly what you're saying. Like, if you start with I can't, how do you convert that to what are the pieces that I can do to create that momentum and get started? Who can I ask? I love what you did today. is you asked me to be on your podcast, right? One of the things I've learned, this is a great strategy. You want to learn more about a company, more about a CEO, more about someone, invite them to be interviewed by you, whether it's on a podcast or any way, so that you can ask those questions. They expect you to ask those questions. Now, not only are you going to have a deeper relationship with that person, you're going to learn along the way, and you're going to see ways that you can collaborate or even recommend them to someone else. So I love that, but you're so open for it, and that's what you're teaching people is part of it is just being open, being interested. By going up to someone and saying, how is your day? You're interested in them, and now you give them an opportunity to connect with you. So it's so innocent to begin with, but can be so powerful over time.
Absolutely.
Thanks for sharing that. And
Oh, you're welcome.
I love it that you are here and that you started as an attorney, and then now you have a different way of approaching this industry, but that background is helping you so much. So would you like to tell us how you're working right now?
Absolutely. I mean, I started my law career because I wanted something safe. My dad was an entrepreneur. He built electric cars. And I was like, I don't like this lifestyle of the ups and downs. And then I got through law school and started my career, and I was like, this is really boring. I know what I'm going to be doing the rest of my days for the next 40 years. So I wanted to not just paper up the deals, I wanted to do the deals. Last month, my first patent was granted that I actually wrote and participated in, not my clients. And the sad thing, it was for an algorithmic stablecoin, which some of you guys know is not great timing. But this is a space where you get to learn, and everyone's here early morning, huge kudos. As a special gift for everyone who was here, I'm gonna hang out in the back after I talk. If you need help on projects, I've been in this space since 2013. There's a ton of great people here that are veterans and can help clear up questions, because I think a lot of what holds us back from building in this space is maybe just one or two things that we're hung up on, whether that's a legal question or a marketing question or a technology question. And if I can help in any way, I'm here for you guys, because this is the time to build in this space. It's a fantastic time to focus. But you might be hung up on how to raise funding or how to structure your project or how to work with the brand, and just know that there's a lot of help and resources here. They've marshaled some incredible speakers, some great projects and attendees. So I'm just really happy you're here, because this is how you learn. I don't do any project where I have to read about it first. I want to get in and build it and do it. And that's what these conferences are for, is to learn from each other, share ideas, because we're all so really early in the space still.
Yeah. And the lessons learned, from the mistakes, are the biggest ones. I do love in the beginning, when you and I were talking, you mentioned to me that you were invited to an event, and it was at the beginning, and you're like, well, who's going to be there? Will you tell us a little bit about some of those relationships from the beginning and to where they've evolved to now?
Yeah, I started in the blockchain space in 2013. I was looking for engineers to hire for my tech company. I'd never been a CEO before. I'd never run a company before, and I had a little bit of funding and needed to build engineers. So I put on a hackathon, which is like a weekend jam where you build things, and that was intimidating because I didn't even know how to code. But the town was super supportive, reached out just cold, like you're talking about, on Twitter to the people in this new town that I just moved to, Austin, Texas, that I thought could help. And instead of begging them to come to the event, I invited them to be speakers, invited them to be judges of the hackathon. And so I got some really smart people to come and speak at the event. And then 250 people showed up, and we built applications all weekend and learned from each other. And that's when I was handed the Satoshi Nakamoto white paper, which was how Bitcoin kicked off, and then met all these developers trying to build things on blockchain. And that was fascinating. And then in the space, they called me back to put on the first Bitcoin hackathon in 2014 in Texas, and got to meet Vitalik before Ethereum had launched. He was one of our judges, the folks at Ripple and BitPay, some early pioneers. So I feel really lucky to have learned from super smart people that were early in the space. And in this NFT space, we're at the exact same timing. We've had that first initial launch, we've seen this big dip, and now you're going to see some incredible projects come out of it that have either already launched and have weathered this and rebuilt their community, or they're just launching now and they've learned from what everyone's done over the last year and a half.
And what you did was you met new people. You didn't wait till it was perfect. You actually took action. And I think a lot of people, we're perfectionists sometimes, and we're like, oh, let me just get it better. Let me make sure the print is right. Let me make sure this is done. What you did was you just jumped in. And because you jumped in, now you were seen as a community leader. And then from being seen as a community leader, you actually developed into a community leader. People had to see you that way. You had to show up that way. But you didn't practice. You just dove in.
No, and I'd love for Steve to speak on this too. But one of the things I get with my legal background is people come up to me and pull me aside and say, hey, I have this great idea. Will you sign an NDA? And I'll chat with you about it. And that's one of those first red flags that you haven't done this before. Because these ideas that we all have, they're pretty cheap. It's really hard to actually fund an idea, build an idea, launch it, and implement it. And the idea part is not the secret sauce. It's what we talked about at the beginning. It's getting up every day and incrementally getting stuff done, finding the right partners, educating yourself, and continuing to push and learn. Because if that idea stays inside of your head, it never gets evolved on, but you get more attached to it. And so you almost protect it like it's part of you. And you need to distance yourself from your ideas and send them out there to go battle. And like if they get beat up, something stronger comes out of that. Your idea gets back up off the floor. And Steve, I mean, you've been building in so many different areas of life. You're a Renaissance man. So I'd love to hear more from you on that.
Yeah, it's, when people look at all these things, oh, you're doing this, you're doing that, really, I would say it all hangs from this one branch, which is this entrepreneurial, motivational, let's move and shake and build legacies. May do it through writing, may do it through music, may do it, it's all connected. So it's not really as many things as it seems, because they all have this similar theme of let's move forward. And here's the thing. Why do I do this? I do this because when I was growing up, I hated my dad because he was never around. I felt like he didn't love me. I felt like he hated me. And as I got older, I found out that it wasn't because of that. It was because he was working. He had to work 2 jobs. I didn't have to experience, being on the street or being, us being kicked out of the home because of what he did. That was his way of showing love. So I'm grateful that in the last 2 or 3 years of his life that we got closer. I was able to open up how I felt, and it's, even though it's a lot of regrets, I have to tell myself, don't regret, embrace where it is. And then I found out a lot of things about him after the fact, like how he lost his dad at 10, which I didn't know. I didn't know my own father lost his real father at 10 and was abused by his stepfather. So that's why it was hard for him to show love in the way I felt I needed it. So I don't want other people to have to go through that same thing. I want people to be able to build their legacies and to be able to spend time with their family. Because if you have kids, any of you here who have kids, families, loved ones, they're not going to be looking at, oh, yeah, you're doing great things. They're going to be looking at, well, when are you going to spend time with me? Do you love me? These are things that they're going to think about. And if we have to always spend time on 9 to 5, and not saying anything is wrong with jobs, I'm definitely not saying that. I know there has to be work, but if you're doing what you love doing, regardless of whether it's a 9 to 5, business owner, whatever, and you're passionate about that, and you're able to do that and make enough of a living where you can spend time with your family, that's fulfillment, in my opinion. I know other people may have other definitions, but this is my why. So I know we're here talking about branding and how to sustain. I do have one comment I want to say. Whether you're an artist, a project, or whatever you're doing, one of the biggest things with sustaining long-term is back to what I said at the beginning, being honest with yourself. Because that's going to help your decision-making as you're making each step along the way, each decision. And the second thing is your community, your connections. You see what I'm saying? I always say something when I'm doing these spaces and things like that. I call it the 3 C's. Conversation equals connection equals community. A conversation is 2 ways. That means you're listening, not just talking, but you're listening. I know I'm a little bit all over the place, but these are just things that are coming to mind. So to answer his question, the way that I do things is, it's all about strategy. Am I going to do acting and music and all this all in one day? Maybe, but most of the times, no. It may be some portions of time focus on this. Then you shift your focus some portion, but everything is connected to that passion. So, And
I love that you brought family into it, because I have a teenager, she's 17, and I've been speaking on NFTs for years. And last year, right before Thanksgiving, I put a challenge out to the room in Genius Network. There's about 360 members there, and about 100 people were together. And I put out this challenge. I'm like, any of you who have teenagers, have a competition. I said, put $1,000 in an account for you, 1,000 for them, or 5,000, whatever works for you. And then teach them a little bit about NFTs, the NFT marketplace, and then for a year, have a competition. and see how long it takes for them to come teach you things. Well, I've had so many people from that group say by January their kids were coming and teaching them things. And now some of the kids are way ahead of the parents. They've learned how to leverage. They've learned how to go in, go out. They have more time. But the parents are learning from the kids, learning from the teenagers. And I recommend that get your kids and people involved so that they're growing with you. But over time, maybe they'll teach us a thing or two along the way.
No, I think that's a really powerful thing. Yesterday on this stage, my clients debuted their project, and this was an intergenerational legacy building project. We had Jackson Murray on stage, and he has a normal 9 to 5, but he invested early in NFTs and learned quite a bit. And we pulled him into this conversation with his dad, who is actor Bill Murray, and said, Jackson, we want to do an NFT project with Bill. Can you help explain to him what NFTs are? And so he educated his dad and his dad's attorney and agent on how NFTs work. And finally, Bill Murray got to the point where he's like, okay, this is like a collector car club. I get it. And it was enough of a mental model for him to figure out how to do the project. And we launched this yesterday with the Chive, which does e-commerce for Bill and has been really successful selling his merchandise and building a community around Bill Murray's fame and career. But the project itself is so much about storytelling and a legacy. If you think about what we're building in NFTs, these sit on a blockchain and they will last until we run out of electricity. I mean, these last forever. And so you have to think about how you build them, how you build community, because the only time that these go out of business is when they either run out of money or they run out of community steam. So you're creating this machine that can actually pass generations, and it may be at some point that Jackson, the son of actor Bill Murray, is running that community. These could be perpetual assets.
I love that. That's one of the things I talk about in business groups is letting people know this is a legacy play. When I'm building things and launching it, I'm thinking about 2-3 generations from now, my heirs, who will reap benefits of things we're doing now and be able to be part of it, even though I'm not even here anymore, right? So I think that looking at it as that legacy play and what can we do for future generations is a really, really nice way to do it. So we're going to wrap up in about 6 minutes. So I want to make sure you guys get any points across that you want to. So why don't you go ahead and start with, what would you say right now if you were just getting started? We know that you have the mindset in. We know that you know how to connect with people. But if you're starting on a brand new project today, what goes on the top of your list?
Observe, research, talk, and at some point take a step, but take a small step. And no matter what information you get from the most brilliant minds in the world, what you do may be different than what they do. So you got to take that step forward. It's scary. I'm telling you, it's scary when, honestly, with this NFTs for Freedom project, the developer that I was working with, they're called Ether Cards, now Gillas, and they did projects for like Steve Aoki and some other, high-profile celebrities. And the thing is, I didn't look at them like, oh, you're working with all these people. I just talked to them normal. I took a step at it. I asked questions. Some things I didn't find out until after the lunch, but taking that step will help you to know what to do and what to ask. I know we're running out of time, but I would like to do one thing for take 30 seconds. Earlier at the beginning, for those who wasn't here, I was talking about if you're here, think about why you're here at the conference. So if one person can raise their hand, I want someone to just come and just speak for 30 seconds. Just one person. I know they're going to probably be like, why are you doing this, Steve? But I can't help it. One person. Come on, one person. There we go. Come on up. I know we're running out of time. We have a little clock. So who are you and what would you like to achieve while you're here?
My name is Buddy Scalera, and thank you. I think I'd like to just make some friends and learn about what the industry is and how to contribute, but mostly just make friends.
He took a chance. So how can they contact you if you want some friends here?
BuddyScalera.com or comicbookschool.com. I'm on Twitter for both.
Comicbookschool.com. Let's go. Let's give it to them, folks. See how easy that was? So everybody here, think about why you're here and just say, you know what, I'm going to talk to one person, two person. Hey, Amy. Hey, y'all. Marie. And hey, Santiago. And just, say you're going to just go and just do it. He came up here and just did it. I would love to invite you on my podcast. So definitely hit me up, info@steveryan.com. I would love to invite, because you took a chance to come up here. So let's get the word out about who you are and what you're doing. So let's go.
Make buddies with Buddy. Okay.
Thank you so much. That's awesome. I think to the theme of what we're talking about today in the brand space, every new project is like that old parable of stone soup. The guy who's starving, so he wanders into a town and asks a villager to heat up a pot of water, and he drops a rock into it. And everyone in the village comes over and they're like, well, what are you boiling over there? He's like, I'm making stone soup. And they're like, well, it would taste better with carrots and onions and potatoes and a little bit of meat. And they start throwing things into the pot, and it gets better and better. And he picks up the stone with a full belly of soup and goes on to the next town and drops in another pot of boiling water. And that's where you kind of have to start. Sometimes you have nothing more than water to start from. But think about your network. Think about the people you're going to meet this week. And then look for those massively unfair advantages. Do you have an educational platform? Do you have social media reach? Do you have access to a brand that can help extend your project and do more? Do you have great technology or great technology partners? So really thinking through those assets that you have both, tangibly and intangibly, and building off of that and finding ways to make that stronger, because everything levels up over time. The more users you have, the more funding you may attract. The more funding you have, the more talent you may be able to attract. This is a kind of a balancing act as you grow a company. And so, understand that you have a lot more than you think you have, and then map out how you plug those holes and make that soup richer.
I know we're almost running out of time, but Lee, what made you come want to moderate today?
Well, first of all, I'm honored that they asked me. There's 40 moderators, and it is a big commitment. Actually, we'll be part of the London event as well. But it's to meet people like you, to be backstage, to see you connect, to learn the questions, to be able to ask you, what have you learned so far? What's the biggest mistake you had to overcome? Because that will help me shorten my learning curve. So access is the number one thing. Number one reason why I'm in the NFT space is access. I look at it as a ticket for access, advanced reach, advanced access, early access, VIP access. So me, when I'm building brands, it doesn't matter if crypto goes up or down. It doesn't matter any of that. What matters is I create such value and I give people access to things that they really want, that they'll do anything to get to the front of line for that. So thank you for asking that question. I appreciate it. But that's how I see NFTs. And trust me, there's a lot of people in the financial world. I'm in Silicon Valley. A lot of people that are really worried about this. And I'm like, you know what? You don't have to use crypto when you do your NFT launch. You can use anything you want. You get to create it. So I think part of it is expanding your brain and saying what works for you and your audience. My number one reason why I build NFT communities is to have meaningful connections. As an internet marketer, we have gotten to the point where if 10% of the people come along with us, we're okay with that. And I'm like, actually, I'm not okay with that. I want 80 or 90% of my people to come along and be part of this so that we're all doing it together. And that's what I see here is we can make the most meaningful connections. Not just here in the space physically, but in our metaverse, in our NFT launches, and so on. So I'm grateful for both of you. I look forward to our connection more. I thank you for your energy, for your knowledge, for what you bring to the table, and making yourself open to everyone here. You guys asking the right questions is number one. Number two, when you go on his podcast, what you do is you do research, you learn about him so you can have a two-way conversation and be interested as well. That's one of my tips for you is do your research before you go on so that you can be educated with them. So thank you again. I appreciate you. Everyone, a round of applause for our guests.